Hey guys, what's going on? It's Nick here after a brief, well, over a year-long hiatus. Things went down, that's not why you're here. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a brief review of D&D 5th edition. Now, I'm coming from 3.5 myself, and, well, 5 is certainly a new monster to tackle, so to speak. I'm used to the expanded skill system where everything had its own place, and you'd be hard-pressed to find, well, I need to do this. Okay, so sleight of hand into, let's say, just a jump check, if you will. You're trying to jump over someone, grab something off their neck. Now it's, acrobatics and sleight of hand, I guess. Yeah, it's still on the sheet. Yeah, acrobatics is a thing now instead of having like jump, tumble, things like that. The feat system is dramatically different. Feats, as far as 5 years concerned, are pretty much not a thing. I mean, they are, but the stat points increase seems to be more prioritized, from what I can tell. And I kind of like that. It means, I don't have to have 40 plus expansions to understand what one of my players' characters wants to do. It's one of the reasons why I had near encyclopedic knowledge of 3.5. That's what made it fun. Hey, it's my cat. He doesn't play, but he's fun. Anyway, so I was almost vehemently against 5th edition when it first came out because of the pre-release information. It did not sell me at all. I was, from what I had read and halfway what I was told, fighters didn't need to hit anymore to deal damage. They did half damage on a miss. I'm sorry, but doesn't matter how good you are. You missed me by this much and your blade's over here, or you missed me all the way out here. It doesn't matter. You're not hitting me. I don't take damage. It's the long and short of it. The fact that they took away dragon magic initially really bothered me. But now there's a variant rule in there with the monster manual that's like, hey, so in case you still want dragons to have magic, here's how you do that. So while technically it's not a core thing, it's in the core book. It's a variant that you can do. It's all good. So they kind of brought me back in with that. The grouped off skill system, I've got to say, I relatively like. It makes my life a little bit easier. I'm still kind of halfway getting used to the, you don't get skill points per se. It's just a matter of, well, you can attempt anything, and maybe you're good at it, maybe you're not. So I kind of like that, and I kind of don't. Mainly because I liked how third edition was like, no, if you don't have any training for this knowledge set, there's no way you'd know about something like that. It's like asking, a third grader who hasn't been in a real science class, what happens when you mix vinegar and baking soda? Bubbly volcano. Most third graders at that point have, done some sort of, required science experiment. Sorry, science experiment for that. But if you haven't, there's no way he's going to know what that does. With 5th edition, it's pretty much, well, maybe you know, maybe you don't. You get one shot. Okay, fine, I'll step back, I'll let him have that. Word of mouth, things happen, that's fine, I don't mind that. Let's see. The main thing that I see that's a larger change, outside of the increased hit dice, I know they did that in 4th edition and Pathfinder. I really do not care for 4th edition. I find it to be a tabletop version of WoW. No, that's not why I play this game. If I want to play a high fantasy game in which I can do all these cool things, I'm gonna play an actual video game. Go Fable, Dark Souls, Final Fantasy, to name a few. That's a whole completely different thing that I don't want dice to be involved with. If I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, I want to be able to have like a not necessarily a narrow focus on things, but certainly not walking around. As far as fourth edition, with the whole Paragon Path, I didn't read that much into it. I did for a brief moment, and then just kind of forgot a lot of it because I got an aneurysm out of just stupidity alone. Ugh, it was bad. I'm not gonna talk about fourth edition anymore. Very bad memories with that system. So as far as fifth edition is concerned, 5e got a pretty nice buff, at least as far as mages. The D6 hit die is certainly a thing. Warlocks have a D8 now, whereas in the third edition variant, I believe they only had a D6. At will spells, as far as cantrips are concerned, I'm halfway okay with that, and I'm not at the same time. I liked having level 0 spells be limited because some of those spells were kind of broken for such a low level. True Strike, you get plus 20 to hit. At level 1, you can hit almost anything as long as you don't roll a 1. Um, that was a thing. 5e reduced a lot of the math you need to do, so you're not worried about plus 2 here, plus 3 from this, plus 8 because you have some obscure feat combination. Now it's based on advantage. You've got your Mushu, stop. You've got your plus to hit. Usually it's strength or dex, and then your proficiency bonus, whatever that happens to be. I really need to learn calm animals. I don't play druids all that often. Mushu. Yeah, look at that, it worked. Anyway, druids, yes, and the mage buff. So let's cantrips and advantage. There we go. That's where I was. So advantage is you roll 2d20, you take the higher number, and that's what you run things off of. So flanking, you have advantage. Don't worry about the plus 2 anymore. With True Strike, it's still a cantrip, level 0 spell. It's now, quote, at will as many times as you want. No longer obviously gives that plus 20, otherwise that would be horrible amounts of broken. But it gives advantage on your next attack roll as it did, sort of. Before you had plus 20, now it's, what was a level 1 spell got reduced down to level 0. Now it's just advantage. I don't mind having advantage, as you can cast that as many times as you want because mages are squishy. They kind of need all the help they can get. But at the same time, you're a mage. You are essentially a fledgling in your magical career, level 1. You have done, if you're running a campaign with guilds, you've barely gotten out of that. Or are going up to the final test, yeah, no, you are now a full mage. Go out and learn some things. We'll call you back when we need you. That being said, you're not going to have this reserve of magical energy that you can just dole out you're T-Pain in a strip club, making it rain with dollar bills. I know it's not the exact reference. It's not my set of music. I'm running in Spectre Media shirt, 1, 2, 3, 4 shirt is smarter than drummer. So I'm in the rock crew. It's not the point. This is a D&D video. So from that, product placement for Powerade, I guess. There we go. Magic Missile. I wish to address that. You have spell slots for level 1 and up. Some of the level 0 spells I feel are just a little too powerful to just sling out left and right. Yes, I get it, mages at low levels needed an extra damage boost, so you have something like Ray of Frost deals a D6 worth of cold damage or something. I'd have to go back and look at it. Now, Magic Missile. You now generate 3 orbs at level 1 that fire off. That's 3d4 plus 3 damage total. As a level 1 spell that you get at first level. That's going to put out most things you're going to encounter at that level. I mean, granted, 15 damage doesn't seem like a lot. As a level 1 character, you got bullywugs, kippers, essentially carnivorous fish like piranhas, but a little more ravage because D&D, everything's more ravage. Kobolds, most low-end orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, so long as they're not chiefs. cast magic missile all on the same target and don't roll like nothing but ones, dropped. There goes your encounter. Because chances are you have probably a fighter, maybe a cleric or a paladin with you, hopefully, either another mage or like a rogue or a ranger. There's a lot of damage output with that grouping. So let's say you're just running the atypical format setup of a fighter, a wizard, a cleric, and a rogue. Fighter gets in, drops 2 goblins because he happens to be running 2 weapons instead of, armor and shield and then like a massive sword or something. Say he's running twin long swords. You can do that in 5e without taking a crap ton of penalties because, well, it's not 3rd edition. You don't need a feat and a skill to swap one hand to the other mid-combat. It's just, you want to do it, fine, have fun. It's a lot more of a laissez-faire approach. And that's one of the things that drew me into the system. But back to the encounter. Your fighter walks in. You've got like 7 goblins, a hobgoblin that's kind of their captain, if you will, but not like a chief. Fighter walks in and just whoosh, gone, decapitates 2 of those goblins immediately because, well, they're goblins. The original Axe body spray is goblin blood. DnD memes on Facebook, look them up. I really need calm animals. Now that cat's a spaz. Let's say the cleric walks in, nobody's wounded, so, heavy mace, morning star, what have you. That's another goblin down. That's already 3 of the 8 enemies. Yeah, 7 goblins and the chief. So that's 3 of the 8 gone. In the first round, 2 people have gone. Now let's say you've got the rogue. Well, I've got a couple of daggers. Let's, in the event that he wants to be a little finesse-oriented, I guess, hucks 2 of them, knocks out 2 more, because, well, goblins don't have a lot of health. In fact, I'm going to do a lookup for it right now as to how much health they have, because I don't remember offhand. Hard copy, because yes. I've got the PDFs as well, but I figured, well, if I'm going to get the PDFs, I've got to at least get the core books, because, well, it's just theft otherwise, and that's wrong. Let's see, goblin. Had these marked down at some point, I believe. Let's see, it's gargoyle, genies, giants, ghouls. Anyway, it's not much. It can't be more than like 6 or 7 hit points because, here we go, goblins. Yeah, just for your atypical goblin, AC 15, on average of 7 hit points. It's 2d6, so at most 12. So that fighter, within reason, is going to drop most of those goblins, no problem. The cleric, depending on what, where he's focused, if he's not just a heal battery, can probably drop him no problem either, too. Most goblins, realistically, you're going to end up with like 3 or 4 hit points. 2 to 12 is, what the range is. 7's the average. So even in that rogue, hucking both of those daggers could theoretically drop both of them in one shot without critting. And if they happen to go first, gets a sneak attack damage on top of it. So that's a d4 plus d6 plus whatever his strength is. That's at least 3 damage. Hopefully, if your rogue doesn't have a penalty to strength, that would just be unfortunate. And our hobgoblin's going to be right here. Nope, that's going to be a separate section. That's fine. So that's 5 now of 7 gone. And now it's your mage's turn. Granted, this is all implying that, your entire party goes before your goblins, and they can't really do anything. Sometimes that happens, sometimes that doesn't. But now it's your mage's turn. Cast Magic Missile. Well, that's 3d4 plus 3 damage. What does he want to do? Can pick off 2 of those goblins, certainly. Let's call it an average of 3 damage per shot. So that's 9 damage you're slinging out. That's with the +1 taken into effect, by the way. The Jackaware, the Homunculus, the +4. Hobgoblin should be ready. Here it is, Hobgoblin. Thank you. So he goes pew, 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 kind of, Yusuke Urameshi style spirit shotgun, because, well, it's already more than one. Could drop one of those goblins, maybe. But let's just imply that he's doing max damage. So that's 5 damage a shot. That's almost guaranteed to drop those goblins, depending on how high their health is. With multiple enemies in a larger encounter at lower levels, they usually downscale the health a little bit, just so it's not a TPK at level 1, because nobody likes that. There's no point. unless you're doing it to prove a point and you've got some sort of a backup of you wake up from this aggressive dream as you are slain, you have a vision of the future. That's one thing. I've done that before. I like using that device every once in a while. It keeps my players on their toes a little more. Like, look, death is a very real thing. Be careful. Or he could just outright blast that hobgoblin 3 times. Say he does 15 damage. On average, since this is a magic missile, it hits regardless, and unless your hobgoblin is a mage that can cast shield, magic missile's gonna hit. Average hit points is 11. Hit dice are 2d8 plus 2, so you can have up to 18. But again, most DMs will kind of down power things as far as health is concerned. Just because you've got multiple enemies, this is still like a level 1 party. So the hobgoblin's going down. Just on a hypothetical, let's say you're the biggest threat, pew pew pew, gone, drops. I mean, hell, if his HP is low enough, you could do it in 2 shots and take out another goblin. That means you've got 1 or 2 goblins left against a party of 4 after round 1. They haven't even gotten to do anything yet. And if you're running a variant rule of, if their initiative count is so low that the party would have a chance to get like another action in, that's 7 enemies gone before they get a chance to react, before the mage even gets a fireball off. It's just kind of one of those things. Having 3 magic missiles in 1 shot, it's a little powerful. But I get it, they're trying to scale back from 4th edition because 3.5, well, 1st edition, you're kind of here. Things were about here. If you're smart, the power shift gets kind of real and it fluctuates off. 2nd edition ended up being, well, you start about here, the monsters start about here. Be smart, it gets about here and kind of grows with you. There's always a possibility of death in 2nd edition. It's one of the things that I liked about it. With 3rd, it's definitely a bit of a wider starting gap, provided you don't power game hardcore and just kind of roleplay, and it scales and eventually flattens, and then about level 10, provided your DM isn't exactly kill happy, it's going to ride even, or you're going to get a nice power shift. With 4th, it just seemed like, you know what, you're going to start here and just kind of go higher. Everything else is going to kind of slowly go up. If I wanted to be the star of a bad JRPG, I'm going to play a bad JRPG. It seems like with 5th, though, they want you to have a decent amount of power. And for lower level, it's like, okay, fine, you're going to definitely stand above. So, yay, and then you get higher, it's like, oh, wait, by the way, and then, hey, let's do some things. But some of the mage spells are certainly, hey, I want that. Doesn't discourage using a mage, if you will. Again, the Warlock has always been strong. The Eldritch invocations are always fun. They now have an actual spell list as well. So not only am I hucking Eldritch Spears at 300 feet because, yes, I've also got backup spells that I can just be the ultimate blaster. That's a thing. That's fun. Before I get too rambly with it, I'm going to wrap it up right about here. If you decided you didn't like my face, just kind of want to skip to the end for a summary. This is about where you do it. I'll probably put an annotation in there. General wrap-up. Do I like 5th edition? Yes. I'm actually doing up a module for it right now that's going to end up leading my party into the Curse of Strahd mod. For those of you who don't remember, Curse of Strahd goes back to the Ravenloft days, Castle Ravenloft, Strahd von Zarovich, big bad vampire. The campaign that I'm writing is going, it's like that's the over-under-arching theme, I guess is how I want to put that. Like that's, all in the background, the shadowy stuff. The main thing that's going to be up in the forefront, the party is going around finding these petrified eyes. Come to find out they're eyes of the beholder. But not just like you run of the mill beholder. We're talking like not quite god status, but definitely under Herculean demigod. Like gods are here, Hercules is here, normal beholders are here. We're talking somewhere in this little middle area. So they bring together these eyes, and plot twist, one of the people helping them is the one who's actually trying to summon it, because they end up getting corrupted by sheer power and just kind of lose themselves into it. Cue Eminem. And then from there, tying into one of my players' backstories, it's Strahd's nephew, I believe, is how I had it set up. Now, Strahd doesn't really have a nephew as far as like core material that I've read through for the revamp for 5e. It's kind of my own thing that I'm just throwing in there, like, hey, so this is this guy's nephew. Well, who is he? Well, this is him. Let's go. Okay. And as far as the kind of the Forgotten Realms, Barovia, where the Strahd campaign takes place, where Ravenloft actually is, isn't a part of my natural world. I have included Menzo Baranzan in the Underdark because, well, yes, I love that campaign setting. From that point, though, it doesn't really include most established D&D realms. It's kind of my own thing. So we're gonna see how that goes. Maybe I'll get some recordings of it, on the table back there, and you guys can sit back and watch. If you guys find you might want to get in on that, give me a message. I'll see what I can do. I get enough people, maybe we'll run like a Skype sesh. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more.